Hello all, good evening to all of you. This is Colonel Dr. Bhaskar Gupta, retired from the Colonel's Military and Defense Armory, that is CMDA, coming to you with the regime change in Dhaka, what's happened recently in our neighborhood, and the instability that's not a good sign for India. The whole week the headlines have been screaming. Finally, the Americans have their man in place in Dhaka. Operation Regime Change by CIA is successful. It's been a week of tumultuous events in neighboring Bangladesh that have brought down the Sheikh Hasina-led Awami League government. What we need to analyze is how and why it happened, the warning signals inherent in it for India, and what we should do to keep our fragile neighborhood intact. To start with, we simply need to continue to be a good neighbor, a trusted one, which means sheltering the ousted PM Sheikh Hasina till she finds a refuge or asylum in a friendly country, and that seems unlikely. Though there are demands in some quarters in India to send her back to Dhaka, that might not be prudent for India and will show us in a poor light to the world at large. Now, coming to the reasons, it's clear that 15 years of uninterrupted rule had gone into Hasina's head, making her the proverbial dictator who sees nothing wrong in whatever he or she does. She even stooped to the level of jailing her opponents, making a temporary truce with the army establishment, and then rigging the recently held elections 4 months back, thus ensuring her continued rule, whereas not realizing that the popular sentiment was clearly against her. Next, she did the unthinkable. She brought back a draconian legislation of 30% reservation in all government jobs in Bangladesh for the crane of freedom fighters, which provoked the already agitated youth to no end. And when the protest spiraled into a mass movement, instead of pacifying the youth or withdrawing her ill-conceived legislation, she ordered a massive crackdown on the protesters. And within a week, starting from 28th July to 4th August, recently, things turned murky and murkier. The country was up in flames. Over 300 protesters were killed in a single day, which brought the anger and resentment to an uncontrollable boil, ultimately bringing down her government, with the army chief now forced to intervene and handing her just a 45 minutes window or deadline to either leave the country or perish in the rising flames. So it was for Hasina, her father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's legacy, returning to haunt the daughter, and she had no option but to escape. And to where? To none of the 57 Muslim countries of the world, but to a Hindu India. Now to some conspiracy theories that have gained ground recently. Who was behind this ouster? Was it the Chinese dragon, along with Pakistan's notorious ISI? China definitely has been eyeing Bangladeshi ports, its textiles, and the fertile Sundarbans as a real estate up for grabs in its backyard. So here was an opportunity, and the Chinese seized it with its proxy Pakistan's help. Another theory is that there is a US hand behind it, as revealed by the now leaked speech that Hasina had planned to deliver to the nation after resigning but could not do so. Here she points an accusing finger at the Americans and the CIA, whom she claims were asking her control of St. Martin Island as their military base. But when she refused to compromise on her nation's sovereignty, the Americans toppled her. What exactly is this St. Martin's Island? It's a small island in the northeastern part of Bangladesh, an island full of corals and a few thousand natives. Why important is, strategically, it's a military base that overlooks the Bay of Bengal. So Americans had the motive, they had the resources, and they have a history of toppling regimes. In the last 100 years, Americans have toppled 72 regimes across the world. So to sum it up, it was domestic discontent, bad governance by Sheikh Hasina, and foreign pressure, all combined bringing down her government and throwing the country into turmoil. In fact, students had offered her a way out, the olive branch, apologize and release the captives, but she refused. So by one estimate, it was her own doing. What should Bangladesh do now? It stands at the cusp of history, with an economist, Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus at the helm, though temporarily. The next step is for the army to restore the confidence of the people, the youth, and try and bring back normalcy. And then cause for fresh elections as soon as possible, in which the BNP, Khaleda Zia, will definitely take part. So the whole world is watching what happens in Bangladesh, and India has a role to play. Let's see what happens. That's all about this topic. Next week I return to you with the Middle East crisis. Thank you. Good evening. Jai Hind.